Most entrepreneurs are leaving 6, 7, even as much as 8 figures on the table every single year. Not because they're not working hard, but because their CPA is only focused on compliance, not a strategy.
What you don't know is costing you commas and zeros. Welcome to the Owner's Profit Playbook. I'm Pat Mancuso. Most entrepreneurs think their biggest challenge is growing revenue, but the real problem is the profit leaks hiding inside their business. On this show, we break down the strategies, structures, and financial blind spots that separate struggling operators from truly profitable businesses. Because building a business is one thing, but building a business that creates wealth, that's the real playbook.
Welcome to the Owner's Profit Playbook, the show where we uncover the blind spots, missed opportunities, and costly assumptions that drain business owners of the commas and zeros they should be keeping. Today, we're not just launching a podcast, we're launching a mission. And who better to do that with than the visionary behind this entire platform, Pat Mancuso, founder, CEO, business strategist, and one of the most trusted experts in tax mitigation, organizational structure, and profit engineering. Pat, welcome to your show.
Thank you so much, Chad. I really appreciate it. This is definitely a shift for me. You know, I'm used to hosting my own shows, interviewing other guests and other experts, not being in the hot seat, if you may, myself. But this episode is important because the podcast, even before this podcast became a concept, it became a passion for me. For decades, I've been obsessed with one question: how do we help entrepreneurs build higher profitability, grow long-term wealth, and create a business worth owning? And that's what this podcast is all about.
Oh, okay, awesome. Well, let's start at the beginning. What is the Owner's Profit Playbook, and what gap does it fill for business owners?
So, Chad, here's the interesting part is that the Owner's Profit Playbook is exactly what it sounds like: a playbook, a framework, a step-by-step strategy on how a business actually produces profit. Most entrepreneurs start their business because they're great at doing something great. If you've ever read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There are technicians, the managers, and the entrepreneurs. So many technicians and managers hang out their own shingle, sell a product, delivering a service and innovating, but they never shift into the role of the architect of being an entrepreneur. It's an old stereotype, is that if you're running your business, or is it running you? They end up running the business instead of designing the business. And the gap between doing and designing is where most of the profit leaks leak out. Here's the truth. Most entrepreneurs are leaving 6, 7, even as much as 8 figures on the table every single year. Not because they're not working hard, but because their CPA is only focused on compliance, not a strategy. That doesn't mean that their CPA is not great. But the way that the system is set up for CPAs, most CPAs, is they go from deadline to deadline, compliance time to compliance time. And I'll share with you, probably somewhere in the rest of this podcast, a real issue where that could cost business owners hundreds of thousands of dollars this year. And because no one ever taught them the financial levers inside their business that actually work, business owners, entrepreneurs struggle. This podcast exists to change that. We're going to expose the blind spots, unpack the strategies, and give owners the tools to keep more profit, protect more wealth, and grow their intention. So this isn't theory. It's not motivational fluff. It's real, it's operational, tactical strategies.
Okay, sounds good. So along the lines of CPAs, one of your favorite lines, and now the tagline of this show, is, "What you don't know is costing you commas and zeros." Explain what you mean by that.
Oh my gosh. I'll give you the blunt version. Most business owners are losing money because they don't know what they don't know. I call those blind spots. Here's what we see every day. And again, I always want to preface everything I say because we work with CPAs. We work with amazing CPAs. Owners assume that their CPAs are giving them strategy, when in reality, most CPAs are only providing compliance. And again, it's partly because of the way that the system is structured. The IRS code is not designed to take money from business owners. It's not. The tax code's actually designed to reward business owners by growing their business, by hiring people. But if no one proactively brings those ideas to you, strategies or opportunities, you're working inside a system that punishes ignorance. And let me say that again. You're working inside a system that punishes ignorance. And so I always have this question, Chad, that I talk with business owners daily, multiple times a day. And I'll always say to someone who I'm meeting for the first time, I'll say, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to ask questions. I'm here to help you, whether you ever use our services or not. But I always start with the question. I say, when was the last time that your CPA or your advisor brought you an idea to reduce taxes, add revenue to your top line, increase your profitability on your bottom line? And the answer 100% of the time, Chad, is they never do that. Doesn't make them bad CPAs. I'm sure they're great at compliance, but that's not what business owners are talking about. We routinely, with the teams that we work with, and we work with many teams who specialize in certain areas, we're able to help business owners recover 30 to 40% of tax savings, tax mitigation, and tax planning through the strategies that are implemented. And this just isn't a one-time deal. This is an ongoing annual deal by structuring how the business handles taxes, how it compensates, the type of entity, even expenses. Let me say that again, 30 to 40% more money in the owner's pocket, just fixing what they didn't know or what was overlooked. And the tragedy of this, and I learned this the hard way personally years ago, the tragedy of this is that because it's every year, think about this, Chad. Think about a tax credit that almost every business could take advantage of, provided they met the criteria. But if they're in business and they do business things, they may meet this. So let's just say that, assume that they did. This tax credit is $15,000 or around $15,000 a year. And of course, you have to be compliant and you have to do the things to take advantage of the tax credit. But let's say you were a business owner and you didn't know about this tax credit and you owned your business for 20 years. Well, people would go, well, that's $300,000. And I say, yeah, actually, if you did the math on 20 years times 15,000, it'd be 300,000. But here's the issue. What if you would have had another $15,000, maybe half that time per year? What could you invest it in? What type of employees could you invest it in where you got a more than 1-to-1 return on that investment? So what I'm super passionate about is these things are not visible to most business owners because no one's bringing them to them. See, that's what we're passionate about. We're going to bring the information to the owners. And ideally, hopefully they work with us and work with our teams and take advantage of these. And the great part about this, Chad, is there's no pressure. If they want to, we say this to them, if they want to take this back to their CPAs or their advisors, what they learn from us and the things that we do and the information that we provide them, we say, hey, go do that. But we always ask them two questions. First, why didn't they bring it to you in the first place? And second, if you do that, do they have the technical knowledge, the experience to be able to not only implement it correctly, but deal with it if there's any pushback, if there's any questions, or if there's things like an audit? And people freak out when they hear that word, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the fact of the matter is that, and most people don't understand this, anything you submit to the government, in this case, the IRS, they can always ask questions on it. No matter how compliant you were, they always can ask questions on it. And so that's where people's fear jumps in sometimes too, of not taking advantage of things or being influenced by their advisors, their accountants, their CPAs who just don't want to go through that process. No one wants to go through an audit, Chad. Let's be clear. No one wants to go through an audit. But the fact of the matter is Tom Wheelwright, who's a CPA out of Arizona, has written a number of books, and he wrote a book called Tax-Free Wealth. And one of the things and it's a business focused book, okay, a high income W-2 wage earners as well, but mostly focused on business owners. And he put this in a way that just has always stayed with me for years. He said the tax code was built to incentivize business owners to grow their business. And the government wants business owners to grow their business because, of course, when they're selling more, they're hiring more people, they're paying more taxes, which means the government's collecting more taxes, no doubt. But he also said when you sell the business, the government wants that money back, right? They loaned it to you basically for a while. Now they want it back. Well, here's the issue. If you're doing things along the way, you don't have to tip the government. You don't have to tip them more than you should. So we're always clear. You need to pay taxes, number one. There is no misnomer on anyone listening to this that you don't pay taxes. Taxes is part of the deal. But you don't have to overpay taxes because there's things that the people and the advisors around you are missing. And that's what this podcast, that's why we did what we did with this podcast, is that we want to put a light on the opportunities that business owners are missing. Because, Chad, I know you know this, so I'm not going to tell you anything new. And I'm on my bandwagon right now, but that's why we're so passionate about it. Business owners work hard. They lay awake at times wondering how they're going to meet payroll. They lay awake at times thinking about how they're going to pay their vendors. They lay awake thinking about the economy. The fact of the matter is no one knows what an entrepreneur goes through unless they've ever gone through it. And the fact of the matter is many entrepreneurs, when they exit their business, exit with less money than they thought, knowing what they know at that point. They might have done something different. Heck, they might have taken a W-2 job and gotten all the benefits and everything from that perspective. So this podcast exists, Chad, to turn the lights on. And we're going to bring experts to the table. We're going to bring information to the table. We're going to give people an opportunity to hear what they're not hearing right now because there's so much going on in the daily life of an entrepreneur. So I think I sound excited, don't I?
Absolutely. Hey, great stuff, great insights, very valuable information. So for your listeners who may be meeting you for the first time, Pat, let's kind of walk through your background. How did you become one of the country's leading strategic tax and business advisors?
Well, Chad, first of all, I'm humbled by the fact that, there are some that would refer to me as a pretty talented individual in terms of being an entrepreneur. So the first thing I would say is it's really hard to help entrepreneurs if you've never been an entrepreneur, if you've never laid awake at night, if you've never exited a business, if you've never started a business. And the fact of the matter is I've done all those things. Now, we've had some great success. We've helped thousands of business owners, 12, 15,000 entrepreneurs. And the fact of the matter is that in business, you see patterns. And we know those patterns. We know what to look for. So that's number one. Number two, a student. I absolutely study the business implications of taxes. Who's got the great information? Who are the experts that are going to help my clients, my business owners that I have relationships with? We did, Chad, we did business over about an 18-month period with about 800 business owners across the country. And the fact of the matter is, in that situation, many of them were getting, I would say, uneducated advice. We'll be very positive about it. And what happened is when we actually had conversations with those folks, it was shocking to me. It was shocking to me that I actually knew more than people who had designations behind their name. And so why and how did I get here? I said, as a business owner and entrepreneur, and I'm still a multiple business owner today, I want to take what I've learned. When I started my entrepreneurial journey in 1990, I've built and scaled companies. I've exited companies. I've had success. I've had failures. All of those have taught me a lot about helping entrepreneurs. And so that mindset comes from this. I don't know, and this validates the mindset. Just, I've always had this mindset of challenging the status quo. There's certain things for me that actually drive me insane. That is people wasting time, people wasting money, poor customer service. Those things drive me insane. And those are all value factors. Those are all things that cost businesses money. And many times the entrepreneur, the business owner, they've never stepped foot in the store. They've never stepped foot in the business, so they don't know that these things are necessarily going on. So the biggest misconception that entrepreneurs have in this case is their ability to take advantage of reduced taxes, their ability to increase profitability. They're changing their financial structure may increase their wealth. So that's where that experience comes from, is not only my personal experience in growing businesses and scaling businesses and exiting, but it also comes from helping hundreds of business owners, having great conversations with some of their advisors and having conversations with some of their advisors that when I got off calls, the business owner would call me and literally they would say, I need a new accountant. I need a new CPA. And I would, pause a little bit and I'd say, well, tell me why. And the common comment was, Pat, you're bringing people to the table that know more about the people that I've been in business with for 15 or 20 years. And I can't continue to do this. And that's what's super exciting for us.
Okay, so as you've kind of helped these companies, whether it's small businesses or multi-million-dollar organizations, and you've helped them unlock massive tax savings, what patterns have you seen across these industries?
Oh, wow. So again, I hope this session doesn't sound like we're beating up an industry, because we're not. Okay. There are amazing CPAs, amazing accountants out there, amazing firms out there. What I've seen though is that many times small to medium sized business owners, now, when you take Amazon has enough money to pay all the highly most paid experts in the world to help them with their tax reduction. Let's be clear. And, Warren Buffett famously said one time that he paid less taxes than his secretary. Well, why? Because Warren Buffett in his business had the ability to hire the most highly paid individuals in the world. And so the pattern that I see is sometimes people get stuck in this rut that I've had my accountant for 10 or 15 or 20 years. I'm super loyal to them. I don't know if I could move. Like I'm so comfortable where I am, but now I'm starting to get uncomfortable that I'm leaving money on the table. So that's a very, very consistent pattern. And that is going to continue, Chad, by the way, because of the average age of CPAs in the industry and the way that the industry is structured. And you see this a lot right now. Small to medium-sized CPA firms are not acquisition targets for private equity or venture capital. They're just not. So then they have a choice. And we looked at buying an accounting firm recently, and although that we haven't executed that process yet, what I discovered in looking at that, and again, this is a pattern, is the CPA firms, and again, there's a lot of them. They struggle to grow because, and again, an entrepreneur has to understand how to grow a business. If you've never been an entrepreneur, it's hard to understand how to grow a business. And now in today's world, holy buckets, what you have to know in terms of marketing, social media, AI, just all the things, so they stay small. Now, if they stay small, then the challenge is they're moving from filing deadline to filing deadline. So even just think about the basic filing deadlines. Payroll, okay? You look at quarterly returns. You look at annual returns. And, you think about it, there's and we're going to talk a little bit about this, I know, before the end, because I do want to make sure I make listeners aware of this. There is, right now, we're going into tax season. And, tax filing date is April 15th. If you don't file your returns by April 15th, you have to file an extension. Now, again, quantifier, I'm not a licensed CPA. I'm not giving you tax advice. I just know those are the things I need to do as a business owner. If I file an extension, now the CPA, I know how this works, they likely take off a week or two. Understandably so. They've been just absolutely going crazy from, basically mid-January till April 15th. So now they take a little bit of time off and people think, oh, well, they're done. No, because they filed probably 50 or 60% of their clients filed extensions, which means now they have work to do through September and October. And so what happens is the other pattern is they get in this rut where it is really hard to keep up with everything going on at the IRS. And there's changes, there's guidance. Most people think about the IRS. And again, this was what most people don't know that's costing them commons and zeros. There's code And then there's thousands and thousands of pages of guidance and interpretation. And then there's gazillions of millions of opinions out there how to interpret that. So the pattern is they're not seeking out the people who are doing the tax mitigation, the tax planning, helping people file for tax credits at a high level every day. Now, there are a number of people who do seek that out. A number of our clients are referred to us by CPA firms or by accountants because they understand they can't do that work. And so they leverage it, which is really smart on their part. So again, it goes back to one of the patterns is they either have to leverage it internally and grow the business or they have to look for outside resources. It's kind of like I always share with people, Chad, that there's general practitioners, they're doctors, and then there's brain surgeons. They're also doctors, but they're a brain surgeon. They both do great things for human beings, but they definitely do different things for human beings. So that's a pattern. And then the biggest last pattern, honestly, is that it's hard to find great teams of people, advisors, accountants, CPAs, and we could go on to exit planners, wealth advisors, insurance, the industries that we've got partners that are helping in all the pieces of tax mitigation. It's hard to find, number one, great people. Number two, it's hard to get them all on the same page because most of the times they're in silos. The wealth manager does not necessarily want to work with the accountant or CPA. Now, if they're smart, they do, but the majority of them, it's territorial. And so that's another pattern we see. And in the last pattern, I think this is a one of the bigger patterns is just the mindset of the business owner. It's hard to make changes to a new CPA, but it's even harder to leave 15, 20, 50, $100,000 on the table every year. And what's ironic is when we come in contact with clients who ultimately discover they're doing that, it becomes very easy to start looking at options for them because the pain of that loss of revenue for that or that those refunds or that money they could have put in retirement or family or grow their business, they just look at it differently.
So you're kind of known for finding opportunities that accountants miss. Why is that?
Well, let me be clear, okay? I find some of them just by asking questions. So, for example, you might be a business owner, Chad, and I might say to you right now, I might say, "Well, Chad, let me ask you a question." And that I think is one of my superpowers. And if you talk with people around me, that it's always been one of the superpowers. I was taught by some great mentors, and I've read a lot and I've studied a lot. Just ask great questions. And so I would say, well, Chad, let me ask you a question. How much did your health coverage, benefit coverage go up from 25 to 26 for your employees? And you might say, what? 10, 15, 20? I've seen as high as 26%, I believe it was, according to a Wall Street Journal article. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say, Chad, you had I'll just take easy numbers. Let's say you had 20 employees and you averaged $10,000 a year in health benefits paid on behalf of your employees. We're not even talking about what they pay. So now if you were paying $200,000 and I said to you, I said, well, Chad, what if there was a way to, number one, reduce your health benefit costs as an employer by 30%? Would you find that of value? What would you say?
I think that would be a good opportunity.
That'd be a good opportunity. Now, what if you could save 30% every year? And you go, wow. Now, what if I said to you, Chad, so let me ask you a question. If you could save 30% and you didn't have to change your carrier, your insurance company, you didn't have to change the amount of benefits, any of the deductibles, you didn't have to change anything for your employee offering. And oh, by the way, your employees would save money and have an improved opportunity in their healthcare benefits. Would that be of interest to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's the part of it's just asking people questions. And you might say, well, what is that? There are companies out there, there are strategies out there that involve tax strategies around healthcare benefits, legal in the code opportunities to take advantage of them. And yet, about 80% of business owners I come in contact with have never heard of it. Accountants, CPAs, never heard of it.
You talk a lot about challenging the status quo. Where does that mindset come from?
Chad, we don't have enough time today to get into that.
Mm.
I think it honestly comes from who I am internally and my mentors and the people that have been around me. I'm going to say this, and people might take it and interpret it the wrong way, so I'm going to explain it as I say it. I'm never satisfied. That doesn't mean I'm not content, because I am content. I am grateful for my success, but I also understand that there's always more potential. I can always get better. I can always learn more. I can always find more partners. I can always find better opportunities for people. And I'm never satisfied when it comes to there's probably a better way. There's probably something I don't know. There might be another advisor out there that has a strategy that could complement another strategy. So, and I look at it this way, just to kind of put a ribbon on this. I work hard for my money. I believe that I do. When I get that money and I spend it somewhere, I hold it accountable. Whether it's I hold it accountable when I buy a vehicle. I hold it accountable when I buy grocery. I hold that money accountable. And what I mean by that is if I don't feel like I got a great experience, I'm going to let somebody know, and with the intention of helping them and grow their business. Now, you already know this. Half the time, 70% of the time, they don't really care. But yet, here's the opportunity. I don't have to bring my money back there. And that's why I keep striving to help small, medium-sized business owners, give them that opportunity, help them to be at the top of their game, increase their sales as much as they desire to, provide a great experience, and at the end of the day, have as much money as they possibly can without, we say, tipping the government.
As you've worked with entrepreneurs, are there maybe some common misconceptions or some big misconceptions that they have about taxes, profitability, and financial structure?
Yeah, there is. And I would say part of it, which is really interesting, it goes to risk factor. So, and again, I go back to Tom Wheelwright and him talking about this. There's a risk spectrum, and there's no right or wrong about this. Okay, but there's a risk spectrum. And sometimes people are they have this aversion. Sometimes people have this aversion to risk when it comes to tax mitigation, tax planning, tax credits, because what they hear, and I can't tell you how many times over the last 3 years in working with these hundreds of business owners, and well, in fact, it goes back to 2020, is that well, you're going to get audited. Okay, well, first of all, here's the thing. You always have the risk of getting audited. The issue is did you prepare for the audit? In other words, did you put all your ducks in a row so that if you were questioned, that you could go to the auditor, to the person who's asking you these questions, and goes, here's my documentation, here's my justification, here's this, here's that. That's a fear for people. It's a huge fear. And that fear is fanned sometimes by the people around them. Again, I said earlier, no one wants an audit, but when you look at even most people don't know this, Chad, there's multiple levels of an audit. And again, most people don't know that. They perceive in their head the audit is somebody's going to show up to their door with a gun and they're going to take them to jail. If you commit fraud, they're going to take you to jail. Let's be clear. And they should. But if you submit something and they don't have enough information to review it or make a decision, they're going to ask you for some more information. It's called an IDR, an information document request. Government says, hey, Pat, I'd like to find out a little bit more information about this. Could you send me this, this, and this? Well, if you have your ducks in a row, what's the fear? And Tom talked about this, I believe, in his book as well. He said, so let's hypothetically take a situation where you take advantage of a tax credit, okay? Now, let's be clear. You don't commit fraud to take advantage of the tax credit. That's not what we're saying, and that's not what any CPA, accountant, advisor, that's not what they say. Tax attorney. You take advantage of a tax credit. You believe you're eligible for the tax credit. You qualify based upon that eligibility. In other words, you meet the criteria that's been established, and you apply for it. Now, the government says, right or wrong, bad or good, we may have a difference of opinion. They say, no, we don't think you're eligible for the tax credit. Well, you have a couple of options. You can go, well, I disagree with you and I'm going to file an appeal. I'm going to actually challenge that. Happens all the time. What's the fear of that? What's the worst thing that can happen? They say no. What I mean, right? I mean, so that's a big piece. That's a big piece based upon what you asked. It is, and it's unfortunate. But it is a big. It's just something that's programmed into them. And the reason I started with the risk deal is when they got into the business, they had so much risk as an entrepreneur, but they were so excited about what they were doing when they started. They didn't pay attention to the risk.
So what do you think maybe qualifies someone to talk about tax mitigation beyond just basic tax prep or bookkeeping?
Yeah, it's a really simple question, Chad. And if anybody's listening to this podcast, the answer that starts the conversation is pretty simple. I will say to a business owner, and Chad, I'm going to say to you, Chad, do you feel like you overpay in taxes? Yes or no?
Oh, of course.
Chad, of course. 99.9% of business owners say, yes, I feel like I overpay in taxes. Now, the question then becomes, and you could go a number of ways with that. Why do you feel like that? What's causing you to think that you overpay in taxes? Have you ever had anybody evaluate the taxes that were done for you where you feel like you're overpaying? Have you ever had a second opinion? People go, no. I go, well, what if the team that I work with could give you a second opinion, no obligation, and share with you where there's opportunities? You guys would do that? Sure, we would do that. Because at the end of the day, it's about the business owner. It's about their wealth. It's about their future. It's about their family. It's about retiring. If we can share something with them and they choose not to use us to execute that strategy, okay, not everybody's going to use us to execute strategies. But the fact of the matter is many do. Many use the companies, the teams that we work with to take advantage of tax credit, to take advantage of tax planning, tax mitigation, estate planning, wealth building, all the things that go into this. So that's where that conversation starts. And each conversation is different. Each business owner, like I was referred a client today, they own 10 businesses. 10 businesses.
Wow.
Okay. So their tax structure is a lot different than the business owner who owns one business. But I almost guarantee you that business owner has got areas where, and the reason that I know this, and respectfully, we're going to keep names out of the conversation, but the reason I know this is because they when they get referred to us, when people refer us, I always get a little bit of background and we'll hear, hey, they might, their CPA might say this, or, they had this experience, they had this experience. So we can't help everybody. Not everybody is overpaying in taxes. Let's be clear. Remember I said 99.9% people would say, I feel like I'm overpaying taxes. And then there's that 1% that's getting the great advice, that's got the great people around them. They're not in silos. They're talking to each other where they go, no, I don't feel like I'm overpaying taxes.
All right.
Like if somebody doesn't pay any taxes, and I always kid with that and go, well, maybe you didn't pay. I mean, there are people in our world, huge millionaires, billionaires, who in on paper don't pay any taxes, but they pay taxes. They pay a lot of taxes. The fact of the matter is everybody pays taxes somewhere along the way, city, state, federal. Like if you own a home, you pay taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So property taxes. But most people don't think about taxes that way. You go to the grocery store, you go buy something, you're paying taxes all over the place. So everybody pays taxes and everybody pays a tax amount. Are you overpaying taxes in your business? That's the question that we focus on.
Sure. Hey, I can tell that this podcast is going to be very valuable for your listeners and future listeners. Tell me about what's coming. What topics will you guys be covering in the Owner's Profit Playbook?
Yeah, Chad, we're super excited. So coming up very soon, We've got the individual that I shared with you earlier, who is the company, the individual we're interviewing is part of a company who can help small to medium-sized business owners save anywhere from 30 to 40% on their healthcare costs without changing the company that they have their premium with, without changing who their employees have to choose as doctors, like changing nothing. And they could save 30 to 40% on an annual basis. And again, when health benefits, I know for me, when health benefits go up, you want to have that savings because it's huge money. We've got an individual coming up, two individuals, in fact, they kind of complement each other, who brought to my attention how when you talk about IRAs and Roths, there's so many things that are misunderstood about those programs. Now, by the way, they're great savings programs. Let's be clear. It's better to have one than not to have one. But it's also better to have your money maximized in them versus not. And so they have strategies, again, legal, according to the code, that allow people to build their wealth through a different process and handling those. Life insurance is another way. There's so many that, in fact, I'll be honest, and probably up until about 10 years ago, life insurance was not one of those things that I had a huge knowledge base on. Did I have life insurance? Yes, because people told me that I need to. And of course, I have a family. But I have learned so much. And we have a super exciting partnership that we're going to announce with one of the most highly respected, we'll just say wealth building life insurance individuals in the country that we just signed a licensing agreement with to bring that information to people. To help them in making the right life insurance decisions, and also understand how you can use, and this is a crazy one, Chad, how you can use life insurance to build wealth. Most people think life insurance is the death benefit after you die for your heirs, and by the way, it is. But what if there was a way to use your life insurance vehicle to build wealth as you age? How many people be interested in that?
That sounds like a good idea.
So that's the type of people that we're bringing to the table. That's the type of partnerships that we've made arrangements with. The last thing I would say is this, and we already did this interview, so it'll be coming out, and it's very time sensitive. The government offers, in the tax code, they offer a research and development tax credit. And just a little bit of history on R&D. R&D has been in the code for going back to the Reagan administration. And it is to incentivize businesses to do their R&D, certainly in the US. And R&D people hear R&D and they think biotech, they think, computer science, technology. But there's really so many industries beyond that. For example, I was at the dentist this morning. Many dental offices would qualify for the R&D tax credit. Now, in 20 and 21, the R&D tax credit was very beneficial for business owners because it had a 100% capture in the year that you did your expenditures, and there's qualifying activities, there's qualified expenditures. And again, no tax advice. I'm just telling you my knowledge base. And in 21, after COVID hit, then the R&D changed where it became incredibly difficult, cumbersome. In fact, it was not beneficial at all for business owners to take advantage of R&D in 22, 23, and 24 because of the way that it was capitalized, amortized over a period of time. So most business owners didn't look at it in 22, 23, 24. Well, when the big, beautiful bill, BBB, was passed, that bill made retroactive the opportunity to go back and take advantage of research and development tax credits where there is qualifications, where a business met the criteria, met the standards, met the tests, to recapture in one fell swoop. So you go back and you amend 22, 23, and 24 returns, and that has to be done by July 5th of 26. Chad, we're in 26 and we're getting very close to February 26. Mm-hmm. And when I think about this is why we do what we do. Right now till April 15th, many accountants, CPAs will be focused on tax returns. Research and development tax credit is not check a box on a form, I can assure you, because again, you have to be prepared if there's any questions. So the underlying information that has to be created, documented, verified. And so when you think about it, it's going to be a challenge for most business or for most accountants and CPAs to do this, to build this infrastructure. And so if business owners don't take advantage of R&D by July 5th of 2026 for 22, 23, 24, oh, by the way, it's gone. Now think about, Chad, if your business, even if you qualified for $50,000 of R&D tax credits for 22, 23, 24, that's $150,000. That's a lot of money. So that's coming to the table very quickly. That'll be released after our episode of this. It'll be the next coming one because it's already been recorded. And so that's what's coming. Man, we've got some great stuff and we're continuing. We'll have, in fact, this will be really exciting. I think it's, we're doing the recording next week. We are going to have an individual who his moniker is he's the funniest tax attorney in the country. And he's written 7 books. I co-authored a book with him. And so we're super excited that he's going to be coming to our podcast here in the next couple of weeks. So there you go. We got a lot going on.
Can you attest to his funniness?
I can, because when I met him the first time, we were in Dallas, Texas, and cowboy hat and cowboy boots. And yet I sat and I listened to him for about an hour and a half, and I was literally blown away so much that I had an opportunity to co-author a book with him, and I did. And I learned more things in that hour and a half that I wish I would have known personally as a business owner for last 25, 30 years. But I also learned things that I can bring to the table to help other business owners in tax planning, tax mitigation, and tax strategies. And so I'm blessed to have that relationship. And he is one of our partners as part of one of the companies that we have an affiliation agreement with.
Okay, sounds good. Well, hey, Pat, this has been a great launch episode. What is maybe one message that you want business owners to walk away with today?
You know, Chad, it's what we started with. You know, it's my belief is what you don't know is costing you commas and zeros. And it's just a matter of how big the commas are and how many the zeros are. And so you owe it to yourself, first and foremost. You owe it to your business. If business owners had more money, could they invest? Could they grow? Could they acquire? Could they retire earlier? You have that obligation to your business and to the employees in your business. And then lastly, you have that obligation to your family, to the people around you. You know, I was always told this, and I never get it right. So, but most people understand. For he who's given a lot, there is a lot of responsibility, and entrepreneurs are given an amazing opportunity. And so, with that, they have a responsibility, and that's what I believe. And I instill that in business owners and entrepreneurs as much I have as the opportunity. So take that responsibility to be making sure that you're maximizing your opportunity. Find out what might be costing you commas and zeros. Again, there's no pressure in working with us or any of the people that I work with. But what happens is once we have an opportunity to talk with people, many times they go, yeah, I've heard this. I don't know how many times, Chad. I've heard more from you and learned more from you in 30 minutes than I've heard from the people around me in 30 years. And I'm not making that up. And so I'm blessed. I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. So that's what I would leave people with. We all have blind spots. We all do. We call those gaps in our business. Those are opportunities. And so seek out the information on those opportunities. Maybe you don't qualify for a tax credit. It's okay, but at least you know. And now you know what you could do to qualify for those tax credits or qualify for that tax planning or tax strategies, whatever it is. So that's what I would leave you with. And, you know, lastly, certainly reach out to us. We talk with people all the time. We give information. We're not holding anything back. You know, it's funny, Chad, you know, the world that we live in, it's kind of an oxymoron. The more and more I read this, but the world that we live in, Everything is out there. Just, go to ChatGPT and type in R&D tax credit, and you'll get something from that. But I can assure you, you won't get everything that's accurate from it. So the point is, information's out there, but it goes back to the brain surgeon, the doctor. You got to be doing what you're doing every day to get better at what you do. And that's what we do.
Okay, sounds great. Hey, great to talk to you as always, Pat. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, Chad, thanks so much. It was great to see you again. I always love the opportunity to talk with you.
Absolutely. You have just heard the mission behind the Owner's Profit Playbook. If you're a business owner who wants to stop overpaying, stop guessing, and finally start keeping more of what you earn, you're in the right place. Subscribe, follow, and share this show with other business owners you care about, because what they don't know is costing them commas and zeros.
Thanks so much, Chad.
Thank you.
If you're serious about building a more profitable business, make sure you subscribe to the Owner's Profit Playbook so you never miss an episode. And if you know another business owner who could benefit from this conversation, share it with them. To learn more about how we help business owners uncover hidden opportunities and strengthen their financial strategy, visit mancusocg.com. And remember, what you don't know is costing you commas and zeros.